That's rule number one. Garbage in, garbage out, to a certain extent. Now, I mean, granted, a water filter is going to dramatically improve whatever water you put into it, but still, a water filter can't work miracles.
The Ready Life, into the country.
Hi, I'm Nick Meisner, and I want to welcome you back to the Ready Life podcast, where you'll learn how to become as independent as possible for basic necessities like water, food, heat, and the power that we so often depend on for these things. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at kind of a back to basics type of thing. Whether you're at a country home, whether you're surviving in the suburbs, whether you're bugging out somewhere or camping, having a good water situation is going to be one of your top priorities. And as you're well aware, we strongly advocate for getting set up in a rural location where you can have your own independent water source, such as a well or a spring, and be completely independent for your water. But for many folks, this dream has not yet become a reality, and you're left dealing with the here and the now, wherever you are. And I want you to know that there's a lot you can do even now to make your family better prepared. You don't have to throw in the towel and resign yourself to being helpless and dependent just because you can't be where you want to end up. Do what you can do now is really a theme of ours. Do what you can do, and while you're doing what you can do, God will open the way for you to do that which you couldn't otherwise do. And one of the things that you can and should do is to have a way to make clean water. How we approach this is going to be different depending upon our circumstances. But I have an overarching tip for you that's going to apply to whatever method of water purification that you end up with or that you're dealing with. And that tip is to find the highest quality water that you can to start with. Now, I know that probably seems obvious, but I've seen folks who have a water filter or something like that, and so they felt like they were just impervious to anything that might be in their water, and they would almost seek out the nastiest water they could find and filter from that, because after all, they've got their water filter. Kind of like when I was a kid and I got my first pair of rubber boots, I had to go stomp in every puddle. Well, I've seen folks be that way with their water filter, and I don't recommend doing that. Stay away from the nasty water unless it's your only option. For instance, most filters don't remove chemicals and pesticides and such. They're designed for removing bacteria and parasites like Giardia, things down to 0.2 microns. That seems to be a pretty popular filtration standard for most of these filters. So you want to avoid big rivers and sources that might have heavily contaminated, pesticides and heavy metals and things like this. That's rule number one. Garbage in, garbage out, to a certain extent. Now, I mean, granted, a water filter is going to dramatically improve whatever water you put into it, but still, a water filter can't work miracles. So, having said that, how you purify your water is going to depend upon your circumstances. Is that for filtering tap water coming out of your faucet at your sink? Or is this something that you're going to want to throw in your bug out bag or in a survival kit in your car or something like that? So let's start with home use. I like a countertop gravity filter since it's simple and it doesn't require that you have any pressurized water, unlike most inline water purification systems. Most of those systems that I've seen, they're for taking out things that are annoyances like iron in the water and things like that, minerals out of the water, stuff like that. But I believe there are some inline filtration systems that are for even dealing with bacteria and things like that. And I'm just not as big a fan of those. They're super convenient, and so you could definitely have them on your house. I don't know as much about them. I like just kind of basic, there's almost nothing to go wrong. And so even with a tabletop or countertop gravity flow filter, even if you lost your water pressure, you could still pour rainwater in them or creek water or whatever water you have access to. You could still pour it in and it would work, which is more than you could say for one of those inline water purification systems. So for this type of a setup, there's really two big names that I'm familiar with, and that's the Katadyn TRK drip filter, and then the Big Berkey, which I have Big Berkey here. We've actually used both the Katadyn and the Big Berkey, but basically you pour water in the upper container, you take the lid off, pour it in there, and there's some filters in there. The different sizes of water filters will have a different number of filters. This one has space for 4, but we only have 2 on there right now, and that just means it won't filter as fast. But you pour it in the upper container, gravity pushes it through the filters down into the lower container or the lower compartment, and then in the lower compartment it's got a spigot where you can let water into your cup or a pot for drinking or for cooking, or any of that kind of thing. So that's how those work with with both of them, with both the Katadyn and the Big Berkey. They both are going to filter out things like parasites, giardia, the bacteria, things like that, the standard things down to, like 0.2 microns or something like that. But the Big Berkey with their black filter, they claim that it's going to even take out chemicals or significantly reduce, at least, the level of chemicals and even heavy metals. And so if their tests are accurate, then that's pretty impressive. And like I said, we've used both of these with great success. The Katadyn we used for, between my folks and us, probably, I want to say 15 to 20 years, something like that, and only changed the filters once. These things can deal with thousands of gallons. So they really can last a long time. We used our Berkey for years, and they're a great option for that particular use case and what I would recommend for inside the home use. And I know many people that use them even for their tap water. So anyhow, that's what I would recommend in that instance. So for portable use, such as for camping or a bug out bag, you're going to be looking at pump filters or purifiers, or gravity filters, or purifiers. They make filters and purifiers, or little bitty mini straw or squeeze bottle type filters, or chemical tablets. There's a number of options for portable use. So like I said, there's pump filters, there's gravity flow ones, there's miniature straw type things, squeeze bottles, and then there's chemical tablets. So now I mentioned filters and purifiers. I should probably make a distinction there. Filters are passively, they're forcing water through a membrane of some sort or a medium of some sort where only particles that are smaller than the perforations are allowed through. And so that's why it'll say like down to 0.2 microns, because anything larger than that gets stuck in the filter medium and can't get through. With purifiers, they're often using chemicals of some sort to actively kill viruses, because viruses are what are typically going to be able to get through. At least some viruses can get through even these filters. And so viruses aren't typically a major concern in the backcountry here in North America, but in third world environments or in areas where the water is really polluted and higher chance of viruses, then that might be a greater concern. And in that case, there are purifiers available. Not all of them use chemicals, but I think I'm safe in saying that most of them do. But I'm going to tell you about some options that don't. So for pump filters, there are a few models that I have experience with. many years of experience with some of these. The biggest and longest lasting that I'm familiar with is the Katadyn pocket filter. And our Katadyn pocket filter here had this for, I want to say 10, 20, probably 30 years. And it's been a remarkable filter. The time has come to replace the filter. In fact, we probably should have replaced it a number of years ago. But it's held up really well, and it's just beefy, it's sturdy, heavy duty, and a great filter if durability and long-lasting capabilities are what you're after. Downsides are that it is on the heavier side for filters, and it is a filter. It takes filters down to 0.2 microns, so it's going to deal with most of the water that you would be dealing with in the woods. Really, almost all of the water that you'd be dealing with out in the woods. But if it's got chemicals or potentially viruses, then this probably wouldn't be the best option for you. But we've never gotten sick with water from this filter, really from any of the filters that we've used. And I think part of that is I attribute it to the principle of getting the best water that you can. That first tip that I gave you, I can't tell you how important that is, because no matter how good your filter is, garbage in, garbage out to a certain extent. So even, we just got back from a camping trip, and it's on a pristine mountain lake that is supposed to have the cleanest water in the whole state. And I'm so into this thing of getting the best water that I can that I don't even get my water from the lake. I go to the tributary that flows into the lake, and that's where I get my water that I put into the water filter. So that's what I'm talking about. If you go the extra mile to get the best option that you have, pour the best water into the filter or use the best water that you can, it's going to go a long ways towards the filter lasting longer, I think, and towards lowering the likelihood that you're going to have any issues with it. But anyhow, so the Katadyn pocket filter is what I was showing you, and it's a good heavy-duty option. Can last like 10,000 gallons. So super tough and a great option for rugged use. Another one that I've had experience with, friends had it for years and years, and we went on lots of camping trips together, and I used it some. It's the MSR Mini Works, which filters out the usual suspects, and it's lighter, it's less expensive, it's easier to pump. I often found myself a little bit envious, in a good way, of their water filter because it was easier to use than the Katadyn, and it would screw right onto the water bottle, which was kind of nice, and stuff like that. They also make a purifier version of it. It's the kind of the big brother of the MSR Mini Works. It's called the Guardian, and it's actually a purifier, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't use chemicals. It's just got some sophisticated technology where it's able to filter out even viruses and stuff like that. And then it also has a carbon filter on it for taking out chemicals and tastes and bad tastes and things like that. So that's a really nice option, but it's more expensive too. So they've got some good options. I like the MSR filters. And so that's a great option as well. Be aware, though, that like with the MSR, the filters don't last as long as with the Katadyn. So that's one reason that we went with the Katadyn, was because we were looking for longevity, something that would go a long time on one filter. And it'll go over 10,000 gallons, whereas the MSR, it's quite a bit less. As if memory serves me right, it's several hundred gallons, maybe, 500, certainly less than 1,000 gallons, I believe. And so, still, that's a long time if you're just using it for camping. But if you were living off of it for quite a while, or you had a large group of people, then you might want to have some spares. And for a smaller, more compact option, The Katadyn Hiker microfilter can work, although it has a filter that doesn't last as long, so it's not going to be long lasting like the pocket filter, but it's lightweight and more compact, and it's probably not as beefy as the Katadyn pocket filter. After using the Katadyn pocket filter for years while camping, though, we switched to a gravity filter, and I absolutely love it. So we have the MSR Trail Base, but they've come out with some better ones for more money that are larger and filter out more stuff like chemicals. That one's called the Guardian. There's also the AutoFlow that doesn't have the super filter, but it's got a larger bag and stuff like that. But the concept is great, and we've found ours to work really well. I think it's supposed to last 1,000 gallons, but with ours at least. But we need to change the filter out, and I don't think we've put 1,000 gallons through it. But I'll just show you real quick. We actually, like I said, got back from a camping trip, and we're drying it out at the moment, so I don't have it all put together. But basically, dirty water bag, clean water bag, and then hose that connects the two and has a filter in between. And this is actually the filter, goes in there. And so it's a really nice sealed system. You pour your dirty water in the dirty water bag, and then from there on it's sealed through tubing all the way into the clean water bag. And then you end up with this clean water bag full of water that you can pour into your water bottles or whatever. And the handy thing is that you can use this with the filter in it by itself. If I push the filter down all the way, put the cap on it, you can use this as a standalone filter without the bags. So it's really all purpose, and we like it a lot. And, you know, like I said, we've had it for, I want to say at least 5 or 6 years. And every camping trip we go on, we probably put, 30 gallons through it, 30 to 50 gallons, because we'll be filtering for more than just us and for a week or two. And so we've put a decent amount of water through it, but we really, really like it. There's no pumping, which was really nice. Now, it may not be the absolute lightest, but it's actually pretty light. It looks kind of bulky because it's got all these parts. And so it is a little bit bulky, but it's not very heavy. And so, you're not really losing much to weight. There are situations where a pump filter could work better, and it's certainly more compact. So if space is an issue, then that might be a better route for you. But this is great for base camps, for camping, and I think even for car survival bags and things like that. And Katadyn also makes a similar setup called the Be Free. We have friends who have that and like theirs as well. Then there's also tiny filters like the Life Straw, where it's actually a really thick, big straw that you suck water through, and it filters the water as you suck it through, on down to like 0.2 microns, once again. And it would be an excellent option for tossing in a little car survival kit or bug out bag, something like that. And, all kinds of options like this. So that's a quick rundown of the ones that I'm familiar with. They're certainly not the only options, so look around and see what's out there. But be sure to look at the fine print as to how many gallons the filter lasts, how many gallons it's estimated to filter, and what it's supposed to filter out, what kinds of things it's supposed to filter out and all that. And then finishing up here, I just wanted to throw out a few last-ditch water purification methods, just in case your back is up against a wall and you don't have a filter or a purifier, but you need drinkable water. So here are some unconventional, you might say, options, and they're really not unconventional. In some ways, they're old-fashioned, but with all of the technology that we have these days, we don't often think of these. And there's the age-old one of boiling. As long as you can make a fire and you have a pot, then this is an option. You bring water to a rolling boil for 1 minute, And if your elevation is above 5,000 feet, some sources say 6,500 feet, but I'd say to be safe, if you're over 5,000 feet, then bring it to a rolling boil for 3 minutes. So 1 minute, unless you're high altitude, then 3 minutes. And after that, let it cool off. You can, if you don't like the taste of boiled water, you can pour it back and forth between bottles to help kind of aerate it and help with that flat taste. Or you can add a pinch of salt to it, and that can help. Bear in mind, though, that boiling is not the same as distilling. So this doesn't actually remove things like chemicals. So that brings us to another option that you could kind of lump this one in with the home options, like the tabletop filter options, except it's, I don't know, it just seems like it's in its own category to me, and that is a distiller. Now, I do not recommend an electric distiller as for what we're talking about here. If you're doing it for health reasons under normal times, then sure, that's great. But an electric distiller is not going to work or might not work in a emergency situation because you may not have power. Plus, they're big and bulky. They're obviously not portable, so these are home units. But even in your home, you may not have power when you need it, and you don't want to lose your water. And so while distillation is probably one of the best methods of getting rid of pretty much everything out of the water, an electric distiller is not a good emergency option. Now, there is one option I'm aware of that is a non-electric distiller, and it's called the survival still. And if you can find one, you can use it with a fire. You can build a fire under it, or if you have a gas stove or something like that, you might be able to use that. And you can actually distill water with that. It's not very convenient, obviously. You can see why I like the countertop filters for home use, because they're just so easy, just crazy easy. But I would be remiss if I didn't throw that one out. And so with distillation, it's removing everything. With boiling, what I was getting at is it doesn't remove everything. It's merely killing the bacteria, the parasites like the Giardia and stuff like that. And of all of the makeshift methods, it's probably the best. But moving on to disinfecting, this is not my ideal because it uses chemicals, but you have to drink. And so this is better than getting sick. It's better than not drinking, and it's better than not getting sick from drinking bad water. So it's not as effective. Basically, it's using bleach in water to kill the bad stuff. And it's not as effective at killing parasites like Giardia as boiling is, but it could be an option if you can't boil the water for some reason. You definitely want to pre-filter the water before you use bleach if it's cloudy at all. So it needs to be clear water, because if it's cloudy, that sediment in there could interfere with the bleach being able to get to everything that it needs to. So you can pre-filter it through a clean cloth or paper towel or something like that. And you're going to use unscented household bleach. It's typically, here in the US at least, it's typically in a concentration of 5 to 9% sodium hypochlorite. If there's no instructions on the bottle, then sometimes these bleach bottles will have instructions for disinfecting water. But if there aren't any instructions, then some rules of thumb are 2 drops of bleach per quart or 8 drops of bleach per gallon. And when I say drops, I'm saying with a dropper. So 8 drops of bleach per gallon, or 40 drops, which would work out to about a half a teaspoon for 5 gallons. So if you had a 5-gallon bucket that you were trying to disinfect, and you want to be sure and stir it well and let it wait for at least 30 minutes before using. And like I said, that's not my favorite option by a long shot, but better than nothing. Ultraviolet filters, ultraviolet purifiers, whatever you want to call them, they can kill some germs. It must be clear water, so it's going to need a pre-filter if it's cloudy. These are usually something that you see inline in pressurized water systems. So, but I have seen some makeshift ones where there's like a battery-powered UV filter or UV light that you can shine in water. And I don't know what I think of those. But that kind of leads into the last low-tech option for water purification, and that's using the sun. The sun can actually improve the quality of water if all else fails, if you don't have any other options. If you just have some clear tubing, that would be ideal. But even if you just had a clear water bottle, but I like clear tubing better because that gets you more exposure, more surface area exposed to the sun. And so you're going to, once again, need to pre-filter it if it's at all cloudy, because you want to get the sediment out, or at least let the sediment settle. And then you would want to expose that water to direct sunlight on a sunny day for at least 6 hours. Or if it's cloudy, I suppose it depends upon how cloudy it is, but the recommendations I've seen are 2 days if it's cloudy. But anyhow, you can do that if you put a dark surface behind it, something that's black or a dark color behind where you are baking that water in the sun rays. It will enhance the effectiveness of this method. And that can be a low-tech emergency way to improve your water quality. Now, granted, this is not as good as really probably any of the other ways, but if your back's up against a wall and you've got no other options, this is better than nothing. And those UV rays can kill a lot of stuff. So anyhow, those are some options for purifying water. You have to have water, whatever your situation, whether you're in a country homestead and you've got, all set up, you've still got to have water and good, clean water, or whether you're in town and you're trying to get out during a disaster or whatever the case may be, you got to have water. This is something anybody can do wherever they are. And in addition to having water purification, it would be good to have some water storage if you don't have a independent water system set up. If you're in a urban or suburban location, then it would be a good idea to have some water storage on hand. And this might be one of those times where you want to use the recommended amount of bleach for sanitizing it and helping it to last longer. I've also heard of people using colloidal silver or hydrogen peroxide. You can look into that if you want. But water storage, the point is water storage is a really good thing, because if you don't have any water, then water purification isn't going to do you any good. But this is just all to have options, and redundancy is good. Having more than one option is a great thing. So I hope this has been super helpful to you in getting your water squared away where if all else fails, at least you could have something to drink. Hope you all have a great week. We'll see you next time.